Hey
Hey,
everybody, we are live.
how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Y'all all know my co-host for tonight, Tex. Tex is front porch. You got to go check him out. Thank you for helping me tonight, Tex. He's helping me set up my computer. He's been awesome. I'm glad he's in my corner. Remind me to never go up against him.
Please.
I really appreciate you, Tex. Thank you so much. And I'm excited about tonight. Lord, we have Mark and Becca Green from Sylacauga, Alabama. They're awesome. If you haven't checked out their channel, go check out Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life. They are so awesome. And Christian, good, ethical folks. And you just can't get any better than them.
I had the opportunity to meet Mark at the Alabama conference.
You did? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, that's awesome. That
yeah.
is awesome.
Well, I recognized the name. I knew I recognized the name, and then when we popped up here backstage, I went, "Oh,
I had no idea you knew him. That's awesome. That makes it even better.
right."
Well, come on out, Mark and Becca Green. I'm so excited.
Hey
Here we
everybody, how
are.
y'all doing
Hey,
tonight? Appreciate y'all asking us to be on and everything tonight.
y'all know
Appreciate
you
you
have a
coming on, man.
special place in my heart because you were my second interview to ever have me, do a public interview. And then you took me right in. You had me at your home. That was the sweetest thing, being around your fire pit party and meeting some of the most precious people. So you already stole my heart in that concept. So
I'm glad you got to come down and
Our next one is March 1st.
yeah, remember that March 1st.
it's going to be awesome. So comfortable, hopefully.
So if
It
you
wasn't too bad.
Maybe the weather will be a little more decent for us.
yeah.
It wasn't too bad, actually. I appreciated the fire, but everybody kept your mind busy talking.
Mhm.
It was my first time. I remember putting a weenie on a iron prong or whatever that thing was, and people were saying when I went to grab it, they said, "Don't touch it." And I had never roasted a weenie, and people was laughing at me. And I said, "I've never roasted a weenie in my life." And I was fixing to grab the weenie right off the thing. They said, "No, don't touch that."
A little bit hot.
Well, I'm glad you got to experience that. That's good to experience that.
It was. And then, of course, preciousness just all around me. I'm not kidding. Everybody was so wonderful to accept me and just go into just like they had known me forever. So that made a big impact on me. And y'all been right here ever since. I watch you religiously. I think y'all are awesome as far as ethical, just like I said before, morally. I think you're awesome people. You're people that if I wouldn't have met you this way, I would love to have run into and met in the future in another way. So thank y'all so much for being such a wonderful influence.
Well, thank you. That's what we're supposed to strive for. I ain't perfect by no means, but I'll try to do my best. So,
You make a good example, both of you. Tex, what you got to say about these folks? You said you knew Mark already.
Yeah, we met at the Alabama conference.
we didn't really get to talk a lot because he was
Yeah,
emceeing and he had his hands full that day. But I did speak to him and all that. So there was a lot of
yeah,
people there. And he can tell you in the Bigfoot world, sometimes you get hemmed up in a corner with somebody for an hour. And I mean, it's great. I'm not saying nothing bad about that, but then you don't get to meet everybody and really talk to everybody real well. So,
yeah.
You want to hear and see, everybody's stories and listen to them, and it's exciting because you want to know somebody's been where you've been. You want to know you're not the only black sheep that's went through something so traumatic.
right.
So
Yes, ma'am.
that's nice to know you got some backup. Somebody
Oh,
that can say, "Been there, done that."
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I enjoy talking to people and listening to them and letting them know that, hey, you ain't by yourself. We've experienced this, and we're not experts at it by no means, but we've learned how to deal with some things. And but biggest thing I think is just listening to people. They need somebody to talk
That's
to, and
that's
that's
right.
the biggest thing.
That is right. And I love listening to Becca. I can't get enough of her about her recipes, her remedies, and all this kind of stuff when she does her talk before you go into our subject tonight. But just out of curiosity, I have to ask you this question. I told you before we come on live, I've wondered, because like you said, everybody's busy telling each other our stories and how it's happened and what's happened and how it came about. Tell me at what point, Mark, that you knew these things really existed for a fact.
January of 2007 in Lowndes County, Alabama, which is about 60 miles south of here. Me and two other friends decided to go down and hunt on the Lowndes County management area. And this property belongs to the state of Alabama now. They bought it from Lyndon Johnson's wife. Her people used to own a lot of land there in that part of Alabama. In fact, I think she lived down there some when she was growing up. But of course, it was an old working plantation, and out the state of Alabama bought it in the 1990s, turned it into a wildlife management area. It's river bottoms. The Alabama River runs right through there, and it's real swampy. Farmland all around it, and it's a very rural place. But me and my two other buddies just wanted a break from up here where we live at hunting. Sometimes I like to go to a new place to hunt, and we decided to go hunting down at Lowndes County. It was on a Friday. We left here about 4 in the morning because it is about an hour and a half drive down there from here. We got down there a little before daylight, got checked in at the checking station, and we went and hunted what they call the north side of the management area, which is next to the Alabama River. Seen a lot of deer that morning, but we couldn't take any of them because they wouldn't allow no does to be took that day. It was bucks only. So at lunchtime, we decided to meet up and eat lunch, and we decided to go hunt the south side of the management area. We had seen a big green field on that was located over there beside a church called St. Mark's Church. In fact, it's the name of the church. Go right past it, and there's a little old turn in, and there's a big old green field. You could tell it was pretty long by looking at it on Google Maps. You could tell it was a pretty good, size field. Me and my two buddies went in there, and once we got to the field, we seen exactly how big it was. This field was about 300 yards long, but not very wide. So we decided to, one buddy sit at this end, one buddy was going to sit in the middle, and I went all the way to the other end. Now, we wasn't facing each other. We was all facing across, looking across the field. So we were just parallel to each other, but we were, a good 100 yards apart down through there. And we got in there around 2:30 that day, I think, around 2:30. It was kind of a sunny day, kind of cool, and the clouds were coming in and out. So, it'd be sunny a minute, then it'd get cloudy a minute. I was listening to a lot of planes go over because we were right there not far from Air Force Base, which would be the Gunner Maxwell Air Force Base there at Montgomery. So a lot of planes taking off, and they're doing their circling and flying around. And I had found me a big white oak tree at the end of that field, and decided to sit up against it. It really concealed me good because it was an old white oak, probably way over 100 years old. And I was sitting up against it, and then behind me was a swamp full of palmettos and just hardwoods. And I knew there was a good bit of water back there because I kept hearing the beavers, hit the water with their tails. And, I could hear water, stuff splashing in water. So I knew their water wasn't too far behind me. A little bit before 4 o'clock, 2 does came in from the swamp into the green field and started feeding. I was watching them and just enjoying myself. And I knew by those 2 does coming in, because we were right in the middle of the rut that time of the rut was that time of the year than that part of Alabama. So I knew the chances of a buck following those does were probably, pretty good percentage that was going to happen. The does kept feeding around, and every now and then they'd stick their head up, look around, and a little bit after 4, and I'm going to say, maybe 5-10 minutes after 4, I heard a little noise back toward the swamp, and the 2 does, raised their heads up, went to looking, and they'd stare for a few minutes, then they'd go back to eating. Then I'd hear this movement again. Of course, in my head, I'm thinking, here comes a buck. He's slipping up. He's following those does, but he's checking too to make sure he ain't winding something else. That's what was going through my head is, this is what's slipping up is a buck. This went on for about another 10 or 15 minutes. The 2 does paying attention. They'd raise their head, look back in there. Well, about that time, all of a sudden, their tails come up, and they flew out of the field, across the field the opposite way. I said, they know he's there, and they leaving, I could still hear the movement, but all of a sudden, I noticed the movement started kind of getting in behind me. Instead of coming toward the field, it started kind of moving in behind me. And of course, I'm still thinking he's trying to win something. He's checking the area out before he's going to step out into that green field and follow those does. Because I figure a lot of bucks on these management areas, they get real smart about people because they've been hunted so much. They get very smart. So I'm figuring he's being real careful. I keep hearing the subtle movements happening back there behind me. And finally, my curiosity gets to the point where I said, it's hard to say, but sometimes your curiosity just gets a hold of you. So I ease up. Still, the tree is keeping me concealed because it's a big tree. And I get up, kind of get stretched, get my gun ready just in case, where I can pull it up if I need to. And I kind of peep out from around the tree, don't see nothing. But about maybe 30 seconds later, I catch movement, maybe, 60, 70 feet on into the swamp. I catch movement. And I'm looking, and I could tell this was on up a little taller than what a deer would be, but I couldn't really make out what I was looking at. Even though 60, 70 feet is pretty close to you, it's dark back in there. There's palmettos that are at least waist high. And, I'm looking at this, and then part of me says, somebody done snuck in here behind me because I could see a little bit what looked like an outline of a human. But now what got me, I couldn't see no orange, no hunter's orange on it. And first thing come to my head was, what idiot, I hate to say it that way, would be walking around there in the middle of hunting season with no orange on a management area. That's the first thing that went through my head. For some reason that day, I did not carry my binoculars with me. I usually have my binoculars with me. So I done something I probably shouldn't have done, but I raised my rifle and looked down the scope at it. And when I did, of course, it brought it in, and that's when I realized that I wasn't probably looking at a human. I was looking at something else because I could see the hair. I could see this part of the shoulder, chest, and almost down to where maybe its waist was. Then, of course, it disappeared into the palmettos. But I could make this out. Then I could see the head would do this, looking at me. And I did. I hate to say it. I raised the rifle on up where I could look. But I could not see the face because it was like a teenager. You've seen these hairdos that come over. It's like the hair comes over like that.
Yeah.
I could not see the face. I couldn't see eyes. I couldn't really make out a mouth or a nose. All I could see was this big wad of hair over this way.
Cousin it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, sort of like it. And it was playing peekaboo with me. It go back behind the tree, and then it would come out, look at me again. all this course took place probably in 15 to 20, 30 seconds. I mean, that's how quick this went. You know, it was me, raised rifle. I'm looking like, I don't know what this is. All of a sudden, it went down on all fours. And how I know, because I seen it go down, and it shot out of there like a rocket back toward that swamp. And you could see the palmettos moving as it was taking off down through there. A lot of people ask me, you think you've seen a bear? No, I do not think this was a bear. When it left out of there, it was faster than a deer leaving. I can see why they can catch deer. That's in my opinion. But this moved so quick out of there. And I didn't even have time for a minute to be scared. I know that don't make sense, but this happened so quick.
It does.
Fear did not enter into the picture till it was gone, and then and it registered in my mind that you just saw something else. Of course, it's getting dark on me. Dark's coming quick. I'm sitting here thinking I need to get out of here because I don't really know. I don't really know what I just saw, but I know it wasn't human. I come on out into the field, start walking up the field, and I get to about where my buddy's sitting in the middle, and I holler for him. He answers me. He comes on out. And first thing I asked him, I said, you see anything? And I even said, somebody. He said, no, I ain't seen nothing. He said, it's just been dead quiet in here. He said, the birds quit. He said, it just got quiet in here. I didn't say nothing else to him about it. We walked on, got up to the end of the field to see my other buddy had done come out. Well, we didn't know that for a minute. We hollered a couple of times, and he hollered from the truck, which was maybe 300-400 yards. He could hear us, and he said, hey, I'm here at the truck. So we head on to the truck, get up there, and the one that had been sitting at the end of this field, Keith, who ended up becoming my research partner, he looks at me, he said, Mark, you okay? I said, yeah, I'm all right. I said, I seen something down there at the end of the field. And he said, okay. He didn't really say nothing else about it. We got in the truck, come on back home. Well, the next day he calls me, and he said, I want to talk to you a minute. He said, what did you exactly see yesterday? And I told him what I saw. He said, you seen a Bigfoot. I said, why you know about that? He said, because I've seen them before. But he had never told me that. See, he kept that quiet. Come to find out, he lives 1.5 miles from me now where he lives at. And they used to come to his grandpa's place, and they used to come in there around his grandpa's place, which would be the ones off the hunting club. That's where Creepy Mountain comes into play that people have heard me talk about. But he had some experiences with them when they were younger, and his grandpa and grandmother had. So that got me and him talking. At the time, I didn't really think about Bigfoot being in Alabama. I mean, it just didn't really cross my mind. And I've been an avid coon hunter. I mean, I grew up hunting, fishing, trapping, camping. Now, I ain't going to say I ain't heard some weird things before or smelt some weird things or had some weird things happen, but I did not contribute it to as we call them here in Alabama, boogers. I didn't contribute to that.
I was in the same boat. I mean, me and you grew up doing the same stuff. And, we was always hearing about this notorious pack of wild dogs that would tear stuff up, or a big cat,
Right.
And I never, me or any of my friends ever ran into this big notorious pack of wild dogs that was hunting everything down there, and we gallivanted all over the place.
Right.
And I never, of course, my family's from Texarkana. I grew up hearing about the Boggy Creek Monster and the Fountain Monster and all that kind of stuff. But I never put two and two together, them being down here in this part of the country with me. I was just like you,
I thought it was strictly from TV. I thought it was just strictly something made up only on TV. And the more I would watch documentaries and stuff, I absolutely was like, man, that that's such a good costume. I mean, Becca would know what I'm talking about. You look for stitching, you look for stuffing. If you've been around a seamstress all your life, then you know how things are sewn. And you're like, there's no way. How did they get that so perfect? Like around each muscle. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just had to tell you, I really thought this was fictional until what happened to me. So, God, it can sometimes just make you want to. Do y'all realize what's out there?
Hey, Mark, I know because I know, especially over yonder, y'all really call them boogers down there.
Right.
But in your younger days, did you ever hear any talk about that kind of stuff going around, or I mean?
Well, I had heard some people mention before about maybe seeing something, but I never did really pay them at much attention.
Right.
Because here I am, especially being an avid coon hunter. I mean, I've been in the woods 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning in some places, 3 or 4 miles deep in the woods.
Right.
Because sometimes, we'd be out on the national forest or way down in the Coosa County right below us, which is nothing but a timber county. That's all it is. Mostly about 3/4 of it's owned by timber companies. And I mean, sometimes we would hear things that, we'd say, well, that's kind of odd. But, we'd shake it off because we'd say, well, it's some kind of animal making that racket. Or sometimes we'd smell stuff that, you really never had smelt before, but you'd always write it off, and
right.
And if you heard people sometimes bring up about something, you would kind of like, well, they probably just encountered something. They didn't really realize what it, I don't know how you say, maybe it was an animal that we know of, but they just wasn't able to identify it, or something like it. Just kind of, I guess you say, shake it off a little bit, but in 2007, January 2007, I had what I call reality check. That's what I tell people, reality check happened,
So,
excuse me, sorry about the coughing.
Now, after, hey, like I said, brother, everybody's getting over that kind of stuff. It's going around bad. So far, I've been lucky and dodged the bullet. But after you had your encounter, and I know you were getting to this, but after you had that first encounter, and you talked to your buddy about it, or he talked to you about it, really. But where did it go from there with you?
Well, of course, my curiosity went crazy then. So, of course, I got on the internet and I typed in Bigfoot in Alabama. That's what I typed in. Lo and behold, boy, it pulled up some stuff. I was like, Lord have mercy. This is more prevalent than I thought it was. But I run across a website. It was alabamabigfoot.com. It was run by the late, I can't even think of his name, Mike McLean. Thank you, babe. My mind went blank a minute.
I've heard the name so much.
Well, I appreciate it.
My mind stays blank. It's all right, Mark.
Yeah, sometimes I go blank a minute. But I started reading his reports. And he had a lot of reports. He had some good detailed reports. And that's when I decided to email him. He lived down in Clark County, which is right above Mobile. He was right next to what we call the Mobile-Tensas Delta. That county he's from had a lot of sightings, that part of Alabama. And I got to reading a lot of the sightings that people were, submitting to him. And a lot of them were similar to what I was having. They were hunters that would run into these things or see them. And then, of course, there were some that were coming to people's homes. And I got, really reading into that. So I sent him an email and told him, of course, who I was and told him what I saw, where I saw it at. And he emailed me back. Then he asked me, could we speak by phone? And I said, well, sure. So I sent him my number, and he emailed me back, and he said, well, I'll call you on such and such day, because I let him know what days I was off and when I'd be able to talk. And so he called me. We had a good, lengthy conversation. We probably talked for 2 hours. Very nice man. Got to know him real well. Thought the world of him. And in our conversation, he brought up another name of a researcher from Arkansas that he went by. His name was Bill White, but his I guess you say his AKA, or however you want to call it, was Tal Banco. And he told me, he said he has done a lot of research there in Lowndes County, because I knew there was a few reports of Lowndes County on there. And I said, oh, he has. And he said, yeah. And he said, would it be okay if he calls and talks to you? And I said, well, sure. Yeah, let him call and talk to me. So a few days later, Mr. Tall calls me. And me and him have about a good 2-hour conversation. And then he asked me, he said, you mind if we submit your report on the, on the AlabamaBigfoot.com? I said, that's fine. As long as you don't use my name, I'm good with it, And so they did. A couple of weeks later, he called me back, wanted to talk to me some more. And I think he was feeling me out. I think he was trying to see. And, we really talked in length about Lowndes County. I had found out that he had went down there and interviewed multiple people in that part of that county, around what they call Whitehall, Benton, all in Lounsboro, all that area. He'd really done a lot of interviewing people. And come to find out, there was a lot of reports from that area. There's a sportsman's lodge, they called it down there, that's owned by I can't think his name now. Big guy in the hunting world, Jackie. It'll hit me in a minute, but Jackie Bushman. There we go. He owns the Southern Hunting Lodge there, right outside of Whitehall, and that's where Mr. Tao was going and staying a lot. And he was even talking to hunters, because a lot of hunters on that place were seeing stuff. And that's when I found out about, in 1998, Alabama Game and Fish magazine done an article, and it was called Stalked in Dallas County, because Dallas County and Lowndes County are just right across the river from each other, about a guy that had a hunting club that had got chased out of the woods by a booger. And Mr. Tao went and interviewed him. Of course, I went and found the article, read it, that the magazine had done. But now Mr. Tao went and interviewed a guy, and he got a lot more information out of him. Come to find out, the people on this hunting club had been dealing with them for years. So me and him got where we started talking. And I'm going to say it was a couple of months later, he called me one day and he said, Mark, I'm coming to Alabama, and I'd like to meet you and Keith. Keith is my buddy that, become a researcher. He said, I'd like to meet y'all. And he said, I'm coming to a little small community in Alabama called Hollins, Alabama. He said, you know where it's at? I said, yes, sir. It's 12 miles from me. He said, well, great. I'm going to be right there where you live at. So come to find out, he was going to a property that I had coon hunted on before and knew the property owners and did not know that they were having all this going on. Now, I had hunted that property in the past, and that was one of the places that I'd heard some weird stuff before when we'd been in there at night coon hunting, and smelt some weird things, and had coon dogs just quit hunting, come back ready to get in the truck and go home, So, and of course, in that conversation, when I told him I knew the people, that just got him that much more tickled, because he said, here's two people that live a few miles apart that's had booger activity, and he said, that's cool. But anyway, he asked me, he said, how much trouble would it be for y'all to meet me in Lowndes County where you seen this at? I said, well, it won't be no trouble. I said, it's a little over an hour and a half drive for us, between an hour and a half, somewhere in there. I said, not bad. He said, well, would you be willing to meet me there? And I said, sure. So I got a hold of Keith, and he said, yeah, I'll go. So anyway, he came to Alabama, and he went to Sportsman's Lodge when he got down there. That's where he stayed the first night. And me and Keith rode down that afternoon, went over and parked where we had parked that time before. And this was on in June. So my sighting was in January. So this is how fast this progressed. This went in about 5 months. Now, of course, everything's different in there. When we went in there in June, it's growed up, summertime, and all that. Well, where we had parked at, right over to the left side of us, was a plum thicket, a wild plum thicket. And they were ripe. You could see the red ones hanging everywhere over there. And Mr. Towle said, he said, man, I love wild plums. He said, guys, we're going to have to get some of them before we go down there where you seen that at. He said, I got to have some of them. Well, he walks over there toward them plum trees, and I see him stopping, looking at the ground. He'll stop and he'll look. He'll walk a little further and he'd look. He said, y'all come over here. And he said, be careful where you step at. I'm going to show y'all something. So we come over there and he's standing. He said, what's that right there? I said, it's a footprint. He said, what? He said, tell me about it. And I said, well, whoever it is ain't got no shoes on. He said, precisely. He said, how many people this day and time walk around in a place that's infested with cottonmouths and rattlesnakes in a plum thicket barefoot? Now, he said 1930s, 40s, yeah. He said back then people run around barefooted, but he said nowadays, he said everybody got shoes, especially this time of year. Mm-hmm. I got to looking, and you could tell these footprints had a good stride to them. They was a good piece apart. And he said, now look how far them apart. He said, Mark, you take a step because you're a tall guy. He said, you take a step, a normal step. And he said, let's compare. Well, when I did, I was nowhere near it. He said, now tell me how many people have got a stride like that. And I said, well, that's an odd walking person if he had a stride like that. He said, precisely. He said, now let's measure it. Of course, he took a measuring. It was 14 inches. And he said, now there's folks running around here with 14, inch feet. But he said, the odds, I don't think this is a human just looking at it. He said, I think this is boogers right here. He said, they're coming to these plums. So we got to looking up in the trees, and he said, let's look. And you could tell up in the top of these plums, they were in the 8-9 foot range. Because wild plums around here, that's about how tall they get. They don't get much taller than that. But you could tell up here in the tip top, there wasn't no plums nowhere. The plums were down lower, and you could see them all up. They were gone in the top. Now, he said birds probably got a few of those, but you could see where something had stood around in them plum trees all in there. So he took a bunch of pictures. He didn't do no castings. I don't think he was big on doing castings. And he said, well, let's head on down here to where you've seen this at. So we start walking down there. We get to the green field. Of course, the green field's done got about knee deep. And, of course, I had snake boots on. I done learned, being a coon hunter. I wear snake boots, especially in the summertime in the woods. But we walking down through there, and of course, hogs had rooted all up in the field. That place full of hogs too. We get down there at that big tree. We find it, and I said, "There's the tree." And he said, "All right, now." He said, "Where'd you see that at?" And I kind of pointed out to the tree down there. He said, "All right." He said, "I want you to stand here at this tree where you were standing, like you were standing." And he said, "I'm gonna walk to that tree. We're going to see about how far it was." And he said, "I'm going to stand there by that tree. And then you can maybe judge what the height was, So he starts walking. And I notice again, he'll stop and look. He'd look down at the ground. He'd look at it a minute. And he'd raise his head up. He'd walk another little piece. He'd stop again. he gets down there and he stands by the tree and he asked me, he does his hand. He said, tell me about where you think. And he gets up a look. Now, he was a short fella. He wasn't no real tall fella. So he gets on up to probably around 6.5 to 7 foot, probably where he's holding his hand. I said, that's about right. He said, okay. He said, all right, I want you to come to me, but don't come the way I come. He said, go around me a little bit, because he said, I want to show you something. So I go around him, me and Keith both. Keith's behind me. We walk down there, and he said, all right. He said, we're going to walk back toward where I come. I'm going to show you something. So we started walking, and there's more footprints. This one was about 16 inches when he measured it. You can see where it just stepped just as pretty. Then about 4 more foot, there was another one. And then it kind of disappeared. You didn't see it no more. And he said, this one's just been in here a couple of days ago. He said, looking at it, because there wasn't a lot of trash in it or nothing. You can see the imprint just as pretty. And he took a bunch of pictures of that area. He took more pictures of that. And that's when he said, well, he turned around. He said, I'm pretty sure that's what you saw, son, was a booger. He said, the height. He said, we're finding footprints now. He said, that tells me they use this area pretty regular in here. He said, and of course, this was his opinion. He said, the booger was probably after deer. May have got a little whiff of you and went to looking for you because he didn't know where you was at. He said, probably a juvenile. He said, he's probably looking for you. He couldn't pinpoint you, but he knew you was here somewhere. And he said, when you stood up and you come around that tree peeping, he nailed you. He said, he got you before you even looked at him. And he said, now why he went to playing peekaboo with you, I don't know. But he said, he probably done seen you before you seen him. Mm-hmm. And but he said, when you raised that rifle, he said they probably done watched hunters shoot deer enough, and he thought you was probably fixing to pull the trigger on him while he took off. He said, and that's why he went on all fours too, because he knew the palmettos would probably conceal him better. And he said, there was probably another one around here that you never saw. He said, there was probably another one. And he said, I'm glad you didn't pull the trigger. And, I said, well, I said, I didn't feel like I was in danger or nothing. Never felt that. I said, I didn't feel fear till he done left, and I knew it was getting dark, and I knew I just witnessed something that wasn't a human, that I didn't think was a human. And then, so we left on out of there. He came on to Silicaga, got him a motel. We went and ate supper that night together, and we talked some more. And he said, well, what about your hunting club? Because I told him we'd been hearing some weird things up there. We've had dogs just quit hunting. And just a lot of oddball stuff, A lot of other hunters up there talking about weird stuff happening. And we told him, we told him all that. And that's when he said, I got to go down here on their property for a couple of days. He said, I'm staying here in the motel. He said, you got my number. He said, before I go home back to Arkansas, I'd like to go up on your hunt club. And he said, when I get through with these folks, he said, I'll give you a call. And I like to ride up there. And I said, yeah, no problem. We'll do that. And so a couple of days later, he called me and he said, is it where we can go up there tonight? And I said, yes, sir. I said, in fact, if you want, we'll go on in the daylight where you can see the terrain. We'll ride you around a little bit. And then we'll stay up there after dark. And he said, well, I'd like to make some calls tonight if we can. I said, yes, sir, I don't mind. I said, whatever you want to do. I said, I'd love to know what's on this hunting club. So we rode him around. He looked at everything. He said, oh, yeah. He said, this place got to have them. He said, that's everything they like. Deep hollers, pine thickets, hardwoods, water. It's a big old place, about 10,000 acres. He said, it's a perfect place for them. Well, that night we went up on a top of a ridge, At the time, it was a big cutover. It just had got cut like a year or two before that. So it was, about waist deep, and broom sage and all that. We got up on top of this ridge, and he whoops out an elk call. And I'm looking at him. He said, "Yes, it's an elk call." And he said, "Every time I've ever went somewhere new, I can usually blow this elk whistle, which is the male." And he said, "I usually get a response." He said, "They usually will answer it." And so he blows that elk call, and I mean, he ain't even got done. It was bam, 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 just like that. Calls coming back just like that. He got quiet, and he listened a minute, and he turned around and looked at me and Keith, and he said, "Y'all got him. Y'all got him, boys." So just the way he said it too, me and him. He said, "Y'all got him, here, boys." So that's how it started evolving. We started talking to him. Me and Keith started going up on the hunting club a lot at nighttime. And that's when we started having interactions with them. They started coming up where we were at. We started making calls. We started getting answers back from them. We were back and forth with Mr. Tall, talking to him. He was telling us stuff to do and try. A lot of stuff we started trying, started working. And I mean, I can go into a lot of that here in a minute whenever y'all want me to.
I just have to ask. Becca's sitting over there thinking she's got away with this. Me and Chris haven't answered no questions. So let me just go ahead and ask you. You said you had knocks and stuff at your own residence. And I said that would scare me to death. So Becca, tell me your experience about your own residence and what that feels like.
We have thumbprint in the air conditioner unit outside of my bedroom window even. So and the fact that I can tell usually when they're around, I can feel it. It's never bothered me though. They don't seem like they're aggressive or anything like that. I'm not gonna be the one that says they're my friends. I'm not quite that point with them yet, but the previous house we lived in, I was telling him that it was like a cycle. There was paranormal in the front and Bigfoot in the back, and then it would cycle. There'd be paranormal in the back and Bigfoot in the front or something. There was a cycle. And we had our chickens and stuff over there, and we never lost a single animal, not a single one, to a predator of any sort over there. It was kind of like there was a protection, if you will, on our stuff. We moved to another place, same thing. We lost an animal that time to was it a coon or was it the dogs?
Coons.
But we never lost anything to the Roman dogs. And the same thing here. We did have a dog get in one of the pens one time, but we're out in the middle of nowhere. We've already took off how many coons since they cut the woods behind us, and never lost chickens to those. So it's, again, to me, that protective vibe is still there. But
well, one thing she didn't tell you is we've always lived within a couple miles of the hunting club.
Yeah. We're not far from Creepy Mountain.
Right. It's 2.5 miles from the house.
That makes sense.
When me and her started dating and and everything, I had went through a divorce, and then later on me and her met and started dating. And I had sold my place, which was just south of the Creepy Mountain. And I moved up the road about 500 yards from that spot. I rented a house. So the boogers were already coming to my house when I was married my first time. They were showing up there after a little while. And then when me and her moved into this place, or she moved in with me later, we started having experiences there. Later on, we moved up the road about 4 miles. They showed up there. Mm-hmm. And then when we bought this place in 2019, about 2020, they showed up. They may have been here when we moved, may have come real quick.
I think it's a different set. I don't think they came with us. I think there's a different set.
It could be, but go ahead and finish what you say. I just wanted everybody
Well,
to
that's
know.
really all I was going to say is it doesn't seem to bother me that I know they're there.
Really, to know that they're looking through the window and stuff. I mean, I know they've never come at, like I said, they stood still at me. And it was me that went into shock. And it was me that couldn't figure out how to get my car. I thought I was breaking my gear shift. But to know,
it doesn't bother me.
To know they could be right now looking through the window at me.
We have paranormal in the house. So the Bigfoot outside of the house doesn't
tell me
bother.
what you mean by paranormal. I must have missed that episode.
The previous owner of this house, we've got 3 bedrooms. The one that's on the very end of the house, I think, is where he used to stay, because we catch him walking from that bedroom up the hallway to the bathroom. We catch the smoke, because he was a smoker, in the bathroom. And one night he was doing his walk, and he stopped outside the bedroom door, because I sleep with doors open. And he turned and looked at me while I was in the bedroom in the bed. So yeah, that Bigfoot outside don't bother me when I've got the previous owner of the house inside with me.
And this house was empty for 7 years before we moved in.
Mm-hmm.
So, because he had been in a nursing home for, I think, 7 years. And before that, I think his wife was bedridden, excuse me. I think the room that me and Rebecca is our bedroom was where she was at.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was
in the guest bedroom.
He was in the other bedroom. Mm-hmm. And it's odd about the smoke, because every now and then, this hall bathroom we have, you'll get a whiff.
Like somebody just smoked.
Just smoked.
Not stale leftover cigarette smoke.
I'm talking about fresh.
Like they just smoked.
Right.
Now we're talking about a house that nobody smokes in. So
nobody here smokes.
Right. So this is I mean, nobody had lived in this house for 7 years.
Wow.
Now the kids that owned the home, or his children, they took care of it. They kept the place up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't let nothing.
Grass was immaculate. Everything.
Oh, yeah. They kept, because he lived. The guy, the son, lives up the road from us about a mile, so he kept his place up. And when their father died,
they were going to keep it. I think they just decided it was too much eventually.
Right. So, but they had kept the place up. But that's one thing. I even catch our dog's sister sometimes.
Staring at stuff.
We'll stare here in the house. All of a sudden, she'll just start staring at a doorway or down the hall.
We'll hear footsteps. Things in a closet will just fall to the floor from the top for no reason.
Fly across. Of course, I've told nobody. That sounds crazy, but
we've heard doorknobs
kitchen
turn.
Yeah.
Chain link fence. The chain that hooks around a gate type thing. We've heard that rattle. I mean, it just stuff happens all the time here. I don't ever actually see the Bigfoot parts of it, but it happens here. We've chased the white dog. If you're in the Bigfoot community and you've heard about the white dog, we've been chasing the white dog several times, thinking there was a dog tied up in the woods somewhere, hurt or something, and we never could get to the dog.
I've never heard of the white dog. I've never heard of it. Well, tell me, what is that?
I don't know the stories about the white dog. Kumbo actually mentioned it in one of his presentations, that there's a dog that follows Bigfoot sometimes or something. So we don't know if the dog out there is a real dog that's with the Bigfoot, or if it's some sort of something else.
Well, what she's referring to, that way.
As I say, you're gonna have to explain it.
There's been different times here that, like, her or her daughter or my stepdaughter Ella would hear sound like a dog right down here behind the house. We have dogs. Our dogs typically would not get stirred up when that would happen, though. They would go looking, but they would never find a dog. There's been times we've heard some voices. Now, we do have people live around us, and it could have echoed through the way. But what was going on during that time period that she didn't really go into depth about was having stuff hit the house, the slaps, or we have some solar floodlights that I put around the house
those.
that were kept getting turned off, and they're 10 foot off the ground back here on the back side of the house.
Yeah.
I would have to actually take a ladder, climb up there, and turn them back on.
I cannot see into my bedroom window at all. That's how far the bottom of the bedroom window is.
Wow. Okay.
And it's got a window unit in it.
It's got a window
and so
unit.
whatever had his hand sitting on the window unit, its thumb pressed into the fins, and he can see just fine up over it.
Well, and what I've done, it kind of done that number.
This number.
Yeah.
Because it's holding the corner.
And when I put my thumb, and I have a big thumb, when I put my thumb up there, there's still that much left. So
it's a big boy.
Yeah.
We found
Next time you come, I'll show you, Miss Celena.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
We found footprints around the pond in the middle of winter. That's just here.
That was small ones.
Yeah, that was small ones. But again, middle of winter.
Right.
When nobody's running around barefoot here.
And that means multiple, of course, that you've had a huge
We've got a pile of lime out there for the field that we've got to spread. There's like butt prints in the top of it where something sat down and slid down and stuff like that.
Well, it's like something big sitting down, but also if like something little was with it, digging and playing and stuff. But when you looked at the print, and you did take pictures of that, I think.
I'm sure I did.
Yeah. It looked like a big old butt sit down in that.
And you sure it wasn't me that had sit there by mistake?
Yours isn't that big. Mine's not that big neither. So
well, this is the same.
Nor his.
This is the same spot. The lime pile, and everybody that's usually been here, they usually can see the lime pile.
They all are like, what's that big white pile out there?
Right next to the lime pile is the cornfield where I got the video that I didn't know they were in the corn. But this is where there's a video when I was videoing the watermelon
they're out
patch.
there in the corn patch.
They're in the corn, peeping out at me while I'm walking around with a video.
I'm thinking I've missed. Maybe I started watching y'all or met you after you've told and showed this. Because I'm loving this stuff. Because I mean, this is things that I'm learning for the first time. I love this.
You can go back to. I think it was in September of 24. No,
that's 23. What it is. I didn't even know
23.
You. No, 22, I think.
No, it's 23.
You sure?
So
I got a couple of screenshots of it on my phone. And one of them, there's clearly like an opening between a couple of the stalks of corn and a branch that's going like this. And you can see the face on this side. And then in the next, it's on this side.
Okay.
So there's actual movement in that.
And I never did catch that. It was some people watching the video that seen movement as they was watching it. And they slowed it down and they got to looking. And the lady, Miss Bama, who it was, she probably won't care for me saying that. But Miss Bama contacted me and she said, Mark, you might need to go back and look at your video. Because she said, I think you got a bunch of boogers in your video. And I'm going, do what? She said, yeah, in your corn.
And she started sending the screenshots.
She started sending screenshots. And then you can go review that video and slow it down. And it's a little old window there. And you'll see them as I'm panning that video or that camera. They're peeping out at me. And there's one big one in the bunch. He's probably 10 foot easy. He's black, he's solid black, and you can see his face a little bit. It's kind of gray, but he has these, I don't know what they are. Looks like big ridges all going up like that. I mean, he's got an oddball looking face, but you can see him. There's one that's real close to me that has an apish looking face. He does have an ape looking face. And his head is it's not really combed. It's like a big hump on him. It's like
And
almost
how
like oblong.
we did not see them.
I mean, I walked within 20 foot of them.
I'm starting to think, Mark and Becca, that and I'm sorry, Tex, we didn't forget about you up there. I'm starting to think that they absolutely. I'm compared to what I've seen, compared to what you're describing, compared to other people's explanations of what they've seen. It don't necessarily mean they have to have the cone head. I mean,
No.
I mean, it's crazy.
This one had an odd shape.
Had no
to it.
hair, and then I've seen the huge one that had pure hair. So, I mean, I don't think it necessarily means all of them have cone heads.
The ones down here that I've seen have the round head, But I've heard about them having misshapen heads, and I can't say I'm surprised, because they have birth defects just like us. I mean, we hear all the time about 3 toes, 6 toes, that type of thing, and so yeah, I mean, with Rob's encounter, he said it looked like it had Down syndrome. That's what it reminded him of. So there's absolutely stuff going on within their. I mean, let's face it. I'm sure, as with anything in the animal kingdom, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they're a form of people, but when the inbreeding is going to happen,
It is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a very good possibility. And plus, you never know what kind of and my thing is, you never know where these things are getting their water from. It could be tainted. It could be causing birth defects. All kinds of stuff. So
I hadn't thought about that.
Because I mean, you got to look at all the paper mills, all the runoff from the cities, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they don't have filtered water like we do.
Well, I mean, you see it in the regular animal kingdom too. A lot of defects, deer, the coons. I mean, you see a lot of that too in them at times. And,
Yep.
And a lot of it's environmental, but some of it is gene pool.
Yeah.
Isn't that something that I absolutely, when you said the inbreeding thing, I thought I could see that. But not once have I thought about environmental, bad water, tainted anything. I mean, I'm learning so much. You know what I'm saying? I stepped into this world August the 7th, 2024. That date will never, ever lose. I ain't even gonna cry. I done got to the point where I done all my crying. As Les Stroud says, when people get on here and bawl and tell about their experience. I did all that, and I'm past the tears. And now I'm strictly just tell me what happened to you, and we'll compare notes. I'm past the tears.
We've got, and of course, everybody in the South's got a pig problem, and it got so bad down here in Texas, Oklahoma, that they were using warfarin to poison the pigs. And, if you don't know anything about warfarin, it's a blood thinner. And I mean, it will, you'll bleed from every orifice you have if you overdose on it. And the farmers and the ranchers and a lot of the Bigfoot community got behind this and forced them to stop it because we were so concerned about the environmental aspects of it and they were trying to tell us, it won't hurt the environment. How can you say that? These pigs die, say they die and because most animals Roger, like rat poison, warfarin, they use it as rat poison. Yeah. And when they go to dying, where do? They go to water.
That's right.
Well, you get that in your streams. Guess what?
Oh yeah.
And what's weird is you could always tell if you were a pig hunter. You could always tell when you got one of these pigs that were affected by this stuff because when you went to dress them, the fat layer turned turquoise. And so you knew they were getting a high dose of this stuff, but you've got these Bigfoot feeding on them. You've got coyotes feeding on them. You got everything feeding on these pigs,
Right.
So how can it not affect the environment?
Right.
But
Right.
they raised enough cane down here that they put a stop to it, and I was glad to see that.
Gosh, that scared me to hear that. I mean, I'm serious. You wouldn't believe each individual guest what you're learning. I mean, you have no idea. You think, oh, she's just wanting to be seen on YouTube. I'm learning. I'm soaking everything up. Right down from Becca's herbs and recipes to what people have been through. Literally, I was on the job. I went to earn a quick $35. I thought it was going to be a 2-second thing to earn me a quick $35 doing that quick serve. To be honest with y'all, that's what I was doing. I didn't know that my whole life would change, and I could never walk outside without looking at the woods again and just doing. You can't help it. You can't walk to your car. In the morning when I get off work, I'll walk to my car, and I promise to God I'll look at that set of woods 10 times before I shut my door to back out. It's just something that happens, and you're going to experience this. If you have not already seen this or one of these creatures, you will see them, and you will double check and second guess what you just looked at. It's going to happen. And like Becca said, some people have good experiences, which is they're decent and they're kind and they're gentle, and they have no, they're not wanting to harm.
For the most part.
For the most part. Okay. And then, of
I'm
course,
not gonna put it past them.
but I'm just saying you also have those that, of course, would protect its family. But then again, y'all, I got to thinking about that, and I thought, what lengths would I go to protect my family? What lengths? There's no telling what these old fat hands could do to somebody if somebody tried to hurt my family in front of me. I'd jerk a knot in them, and you know that. I would say, okay, I'll pray for forgiveness tomorrow, Lord, but today I'm taking care of business. Nobody's going to hurt my family. So I think what they do is do whatever they have to do to scare humans away from their family and their clans. I just really do. And they stepped out to let me know, hey, we're watching over this property. They didn't say a thing. They didn't, come towards me at all. They just stood still. And I mean, it was me trying to get out of there. But anyways, God, I love to hear each experience has its own uniqueness. And thank y'all. I'm so serious when I say, I know you don't feel good. You have that crud going on, and you took the time to step out and do this for me. And it means the world to us, don't it, Tex? It just means so much to me.
Yeah, it was good seeing you again, brother. I mean, it's and hopefully I'm going to be at the Alabama conference in June. So if y'all make it, we'll all get together. We'll sit down and have chicken fried steak or something.
Oh yeah.
We'll go to Tawana Cafe Market. I'm going to root for Tawana's Cafe and Market in Glencoe. Anyway,
right.
Okay. Well, Mark and Becca, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And y'all send everybody my way if they've had an experience, okay? I love you all so much. And Tex, help me tell them goodbye. We love y'all.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. Mark, Becca, I'd love to have you on my show sometime if you'd like to come on.
Yeah, sure.
We can sit here and tell war stories and compare notes all night on what we've been running into.
Becca's passing the buck over here.
Just when we get off here in just a minute, I'll give you my email address I
got it.
Okay. Just shoot me an email and I'll send you my phone number, or Miss Dunn can give you my phone number. I don't care, and you can call and we'll set up a date. And Gary and Miss Dunn had said something to me about it, but at work we've been so busy for the last month. We've had a lot of downtime, and it's just, and I'm working a new type shift, and so it's been hard for me to sit down. I've been on my buddies a few times, old line cryptids, Jeff and Jerry out of Maryland.
What a wonderful group of people.
They just do sporadic stuff, and they know when I'm off, and they'll say, hey, come on with us tonight. And I'm like, okay.
I'll tell you what, that's how we'll work it.
Okay, well that's fine. Yeah, I've got a lot of in-depth stuff that I went through it with some people, but I've never got real deep. But from that first sighting in 2007 to 2013, there is a ton of stuff. I've told a little bit about it on my channel, and because we had a guy that caught a thermal there in 2012, and that's how we ended up with finding Bigfoot coming here, and then Mr. Towle asked me and Keith to start taking sightings in this area and visiting other folks' property besides what we were doing on Creepy Mountain. And that's when I found out how many boogers were around this area, where they were all at. And there's a ton of them. I still probably don't know where they're at, but I've been to multiple properties, all within 30 miles of where I live. And that's how when Miss Dunn brought up about what she saw, where she's seen it, I knew right off bat she was in a hot spot, because there is tons and tons of sightings in her area where she's seen that. Of course, that's where Rebecca's from, is up in that neck of the woods, and right across the state line there at Cedartown, Georgia. But
where there's aptly a place called Booger Hill.
Yep.
There you go. There you go.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well,
a woman who only thought it existed in the movies only.
I know, right? Well, once again, on behalf of Celena and myself, I want to say thank you for coming on. Y'all, everybody, if you ain't subscribed to Cedar Creek Bottoms Farmstead Life, go over there and show them some love. If you're a porcher and you ain't over there, I'm gonna be mad at you. But y'all take care of yourself. Y'all get to feeling better, man. It's y'all be careful though. That stuff, man, it ain't no joke this year.
Right. We appreciate you having us on, and but one of these days we'll get you on ours too, because a lot of time we like to get people on and not just really talk about Bigfoot, but talk
All
about
the rest of it.
About farming or homesteading, or about where you're from,
what your hobbies are.
Yeah, so we'll have to hit you up on that down the road and everything.
Yeah, y'all say the word. I'll be more than happy to come over and chew the fat with you anytime.
There you go.
All right.
Thank y'all so much. I sure love you. Thank you for visiting Southern Belle Bigfoot.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight, and we're going to cut y'all loose so y'all can go have supper or whatever you're going to do. Y'all take care, and we'll see y'all later.
Appreciate it. Thank y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you.